Umlen and Ablat Gemara, and today we are finishing Masechta Avodah Zarah. Following that, we only have one more Masechta Hodius, and that concludes Nezikin. And then we'll be on our last leg of Kochim. So we're up to that Ayin Vov, and we spoke about yesterday about kashering kalim, and we said there's different methods. One is Hagolah by boiling up water, and one is through Libun by fire. And we have this rule, Kiboila Karpolte, the way it absorbed the treif, that is how you have it exuded. That's how you kasher it. And we also said Mahat Torah, and this is how we paskin. We had a machlekes matayda the first 24 hours, anything that's exuded from the keli or is treif, and after that we say nois and tam levgam. It's a foul taste. According to the Torah, it's not forbidden. It's only with the rabbanim because of a gzera. Toys already wants to know. So how come we only make gzera on the pot? If by mistake you cook food in a tray for pot, if it's over 24 hours old, the first reaction that most people have is you throw the food out, and then you go to the Rav with the Shaila, what do we do with the pot? When in fact it should be the other way around. The food is actually kosher because it's nice and time the bagam. You weren't aware it was done by mistake or whatever. The food itself is kosher. It is the pot that we need to worry about. And Taisa wants to know why the pot we made a gzera, if even though it's more than 24 hours old, we're going to say it's treif. And when it comes to the food, we say the food is all right. And Taisa said very interestingly in logic, the keli was definitely 100% treif for the first 24 hours. And therefore, the Chacham decided to extend that. The food was never treif. It was kosher from the beginning. And now you want to make it treif. We're not going to go that far to make it treif. And that's the reason is there is a big argument. Rashi and his grandson Rabbeinu Tam both agree that when we say that Nisan Tam Lav Gam is only if it's overnight, the following morning already is permitted because it's the night, and Rabbeinu Tam actually is of the opinion that it's the end of the night that makes it taste foul. And other Rishonim hold you have to wait 24 hours. The Shulchan is an argument, the Shach and others, whether which way we follow, and we generally are machmer, you wait 24 hours to make it an Ein Ben Yoimei. Okay, so now we're going to introduce a new concept which we actually use in halacha for milchis to fleishiks or chametz to Pesach. So the Gemara is Daf Ayin Vav Amud Aleph, the very top of the page. Kumalan Lablat Gemara, 4 lines from the top. Rabbi Amram Rav Sheshes. Rav Amram asked Rav Sheshes a question. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah Hashapudi in a spit. Va'asklon a great melabdan ba'ur. What do? You have to do liban because it was through heat of a fire that the treif was absorbed, and that's how you exude it. I'll answer your question. What now we learned in the Mishnah Gabe Kochim, when it comes to Kochim, because they used to go ahead and cook Kochim like a korban chatas or a korban shlamim. They would cook the chazay and the sheikh. These are the gifts that you give to the kohen. They would cook it there and use a spit, and in that spit we have a problem with kochim because once it goes by, it's used by date, then it becomes nicer, which is an iser karis if you eat it. So what happens to the spit? They have to keep on throwing out the spit and bringing new spits in. What do they do? So it says they got kochim hashapud va'askla magila b'chamin. They would kasher it, but how did they kasher it? By hagolah. Our Mishnah says you kasher it through libun, and there it says through hagolah. How's that work? Amalei, Rav Sheshes said, good question. Amram Bari, Amram my son. Called him Amram my son. Ma inyan kochim eitzel giuli egucham. I'm going to introduce a new concept why there's a fundamental difference between kochim and giuli egucham. When you have a treif, the treif was treif before it entered the pot, or whatever it is that it entered, and now it entered the spit or the grate. It was treif before, it continues being treif, and therefore, because it came in through fire, the only way to remedy is by using fire to purge it from all of its flavors. But on the other hand, but when it comes to kochim, the kochim the day that you cooked it was permitted. What was absorbed by the keli? Something which was permitted, and therefore to take that out is enough to do hagolah because there was no iser here yet. That's called hete. It was absorbed. And this was iser. Amar Rava says, Rava, who cares? Who cares what it was like at the time when it entered? We're now focusing at the time that it was exuded, and right now it's Asr. So the Isser landed on this when it was inside, absorbed in the walls. It became, now it's transformed from Kachim, which is permitted, to Nicer, which is forbidden. Just like Treif. What's the difference if it was Treif before it entered the Keli or while it was in the Keli? It's the same thing. So the Gemara says, Saif, ultimately, he kapolit, Yisur kapolit, when it was exuded, it was Isser. El Amar Rava gives a new answer. My Hagola Nami, you know what Hagola means? Shtifo Marika. The Torah says when it comes to kachim and you have these pots and pans you use, you have to go ahead and you have to rinse it properly. You have to scrape it off and scrub it. You have to scrub it and rinse it. And therefore, that's what it means. You have to scrub it and rinse it. And then you go ahead and you do your libun. Special din when it comes to kachim. So when it says Hagola, what did Hagola mean? It means the scrubbing and the rinsing. By the way, talking about. It says, when do we refer to scrubbing and rinsing as Hagola? Hagola means boiling hot water. And that's done through cold water. And Hagola is with hot water. Elam Rabbi Abai says, I'll tell you what, Abai is very machmir, and that is Yagid Olav Reyoy. The friend should reveal regarding itself. What do you mean? That in fact you need two stages. When it comes to the spit and the grate, you need to do Hagola followed by Libun, both. So one Mishnah by Chulin it mentions only the Libun part, and by Kotchim it mentions the Hagola. But you learn from each other, you need two stages, which is a very, very big chumrah. Tana Hachalib Wood in Hagola saying applies, you need both Hagola, and Tana Hachalib mentions Hagola by Kotchim, but really Wood and Leave, you need both. Amalei Rabbi says it's unheard of. Ihachi, the way the format, that's what the Mishnah and the two Mishnahs meant. What it should have said is by one of them. Kachim or our Mishnah here should have said you need both, two stages. You need the Hagol and the Libun. And then the other place, you only mention one, and we'll say, well, Yagid Olav Reya. But you can't have one din here and one din there and say Yagid Olav Reya. There's no link between the two. Say both by one place, but at least the and then mention only one by the other place. The layman then apply the rule of Yagid Olav Reya. Elam Rabba says, Rabba, Kachim and Tamai, you know why that Kachim Hagol is sufficient? Who says a very interesting thing. Kol Yom v'Yom, every day, Nasa Igiu l'Chaveda. Every single day, they use the pots and pans over and over again. So therefore, when you cooked it up again, even though you had new food in there, it automatically kashed the original keli. In fact, there's a Bala'iter, I think it's Simon Tzadik Dal near there, that uses this, but the Ebed as a heter. That it, but if you by mistake cooked other things that maybe it's kashering as it's going on. As long as they have shishim, we'll discuss them. So the Gemara, Tainach, it makes sense. Shlamim. Shlamim allowed to eat for 2 days and 1 night. So on a Tuesday, you made a shlamim. Wednesday, you're going to make another carbon. We don't care that some of the shlamim came out into the carbon because it was all kosher. And therefore, when you put the new carbon, let's say a chatas, it kashered the keli. So on the Thursday, there's no problem. Because Thursday, you're going to have, another, let's say you made another shlamim, and that's all. So there's no problem. You can eat for 2 days. You never nicer giggles. Before it became nicer, you cooked on Monday. So Tuesday, you all hectic, and you cooked something with another shlamim in there. And that second shlamim, okay, made it all, but it was kashed the thing, because there's no Easter here yet. When it comes to karma chatas, keep it's actually going to be that day. So Monday you cook the karma chatas. Come Tuesday, what's coming out of the keli noiser? Coming out noiser. Then already it made the shlamim treif. It made the shlamim treif. How can it work? When you cook the chatas, having noiser. When you cook today on Tuesday, chatas having noiser. The chatas you cooked on Monday became already noiser. Noiser the chatas. The eat the chatas shlam l'machar. And so what's going to happen is if you use it on Monday, you made a chatas, and then on Tuesday you make another carbon, whatever the carbon is, regardless shlam l'machatas, the taste and flavors that are coming out of the pot already are nice. Amri, we say late. You know what we did? It depends what you cook. If you cook the shlamim today on Monday, we wait until Tuesday, we use the pot again, and for whatever you want. But if you cook the chatas on Monday, on the same day you cook the chatas in the late afternoon, you did a shlamim in there. So the shlamim kashed the chatas from that day. So it comes the following day, Tuesday, all you have is the shlamim juices, which is no problem. There's no isser involved here yet. That's why you can kash itself out. They're both completed at the same time. Meaning that the chatas of Monday and the shlamim of Tuesday is not an issue whatsoever, because you made the shlamim not on Tuesday. If you made whatever day you made a chatas on that very same day, you made the shlamim. So therefore, bahadei hadodi kosholim zemnayu. It doesn't really mean bahadei hadodi on Tuesday because chatas is already finished on Monday. But it's as if they both ended at the same time. Everything is mutter, and then bahadei mevasha shlamim d'lmocha, and then the shlamim later on Monday afternoon. That's what you did. He said the Gemara, if you're telling me this did that if as long as it's heter, it cashes itself out. Hagolah nami lo leboy. Why you need hagolah? You already had the hagolah on chatos in the morning, Monday morning, and made a shalami Monday afternoon, so that cleansed out the chatos of the morning. So why you need hagolah? Kasha. That is a problem. So this thing that the keli kashes out works by hetera bola, like by milchig keli or pleasure keli. Rapapa says, no, I'll give you a different answer altogether. You want to know the difference between kachim, why kachim hagolah is good enough, and why by treif you need libun by a spit? High kodir, by a high loy kodir. This over here, becomes very, very hard. If you only use it on an irregular basis, it becomes very hard, and therefore you need to extract the taste. You need libun. But when it comes to kachim, they continuously used the pot, so therefore it was always very juicy. It was never really very hard, and therefore even hagolah is enough to extract all the remnants inside the walls of the kevi. Ravashi says no. Let's go back to the original answer of Sheshes. Over here, bola, bola. The difference is by kachim it's hete, and over here it's isa. I asked the question. So what about kachim it's hete? But by the time the isa came out, it's nicer. Who cares what was absorbed inside the keli? What the focus should be, and what came out of the keli, and it both was isa. And because of that, we changed our whole answer. So Ravashi, very important. He asked me to be eating the kapolit, eating the kapolit while it was coming out. Isu the kapolit, what was coming out? Isa. You're right. Be eating the kapolit, loy isul isura be'ena. The isa, when it is absorbed in the walls of the keli, and therefore that's when the isa came on it, and that is why hagol is enough. By in the other keli by treif, it was also before it entered the keli, and therefore what came out is the isa as well. So you need libun. What exactly the pshat is for the Alter Rebbe in Hilchos Pesach and Tafnun Aleph explains beautifully in his Ha'ara, can't remember which sifra it is, and he explains over there the pshat is that hetera bola means that what entered the keli, they're talking about chametz. It entered the keli was chametz, and when the zman of Pesach comes, if you did have gola, you removed almost all of it. When it comes to the zman of Isa now, the Isa has to be chal on something. Since there's nothing that tangible, it's absorbed in the keli, and it's such a minute amount because whatever was left post the hagolah is very minute. Therefore, there's nowhere for where the Isa can coincide with can be chal. But if it's also before it started, then we don't care how minute, how little bit is I guess how minimal the amount that's inside the walls of keli is. The fact is that it's Isa already, and therefore you need libun. We use the hetera bola. We use it for komets and pesach for certain things like a frying pan. How to kasher a frying pan throughout the year, you need libun, mashenka, because even though most of the time let's say full of oil, but sometimes you don't have it burns out, and that's enough of a chumrah. But when it comes to pesach, we'll have a double suffix. First of all, most of the time use a lot of oil. It's only a suffix sometimes. Plus, it's hetera bola, and we combine the two. Same thing with a knife. We kasher knife, but throughout the year we don't really kasher knife because treif knife if it could have been used to turn things over on the fire. Argument by small kitchen knives whether we possibly you could kasher it, and that's what it is. And generally speaking, you need shishim. But if you have treif, and you want to kasher, you need shishim unless it's more than 24 hours old, then it's nice and tam lebgam. Then you don't really need shishim. But when hetera bola, even if it's within 24 hours, hetera bola, we say that maybe you don't need shishim at all in the water to boil up to do hagolah. Okay, says you want further. How far do we take libun? How much money? Until the surface peels off. Yerushalmi says until nitzutzes nitzim imenu, until sparks go flying. Which according to some is the same, according to others, the Shalmi is even more machmer. And then we have a thing called liban kal. Liban kal is liban kal is tantamount to hagolah, but using a torch. And liban kal is you put a tissue on the other side of it, it will catch on fire, and that's much less. In the Alter Rebbe continuously keeps on changing when it says liban. If it's whether the tzutz is nitzim menu, whether it's only for the tissue to burn, or whether it's a tashi klipasan, and it's very careful because he keeps on changing all the time what exactly each one means. So let's think about it further. The case of Magil and Hadi Kasher, you take a small pot, you put it inside a big pot. What's considered? What if you have a large pot? You can't put it inside anything. There was this large pot, and it came straight. We bought it from a guy and he had to cash it. What he did was, I had the leg get down for the lisha. He put on it on the border. He put on a little like a paste of dough. So you raise the rim so the water level can go to the very top. And Maya and fill it up with water and he heated it up. Oh, my Rabbi says, Rabbi, man, I'm never going to do so. Who's so clever to make something like this, such a model? Eli Rabbi Kavia, the guy, Mr. Rabbi Kavia is a great man. Because he holds kiboyle kach polter. This is the rule that we use. The way he became usher, the way he becomes the way you kasher it. Now, when you cooked it, what happened was you filled the water, let's say, mostly to the top, and then water bubbles, so when it hit the surface. So now that you filled up the water to the top, and you did the same thing, and you put a rim around it, so that the water was very top, and it bubbles up. So therefore, just like it bubbled up, and we're worried that it became treif that way, it bubbled up and it kashed. And the only way you can make sure that it really reaches the top is by having this rim around it, this makeshift rim. Ma boy through we call it sparks, but through little drops, sprinkles is af peltoy minutos. I say kash. Then we go to the knife. Sakin shafu bitoida. The sakin, what you do is you scrape it everything else, and then it is toyer. That you have to stick it in the ground 10 times. The Yerushalmi says 3 times, and the Alma says 10 times. Questionable whether dafka 10 or not. Shlomo brings up to be 10 times, and Machlek is whether you need to do both, whether you have to scrape the knife as well as putting in the ground 10 times. This, as we'll soon see, is only for cold stuff, or not. Says the Gemara. Others say shafat does not mean you have to scrape it. It basically means you take a rough cloth and you go up and down the knife to get rid of any fats or anything else. But karka has been karka that hasn't been tilled yet, so therefore it's tough. It's rough. It has to be also smooth. Because if it has teeth, and pieces might be stuck in the teeth. Time we learned sakin yofash is a nice knife that has no teeth. You stick in the ground 10 times. But this only allows you to use the knife to eat cold things, not hot things. And now, according to Moses Shem, we're talking about a large knife that you could also use it on the grate, on the fire. But if it's a small knife that you never use on the fire, it's not a problem. A small knife that sometimes you use on the fire is a machlekes, whether we're worried about the sometimes, or we only focus on what you use for majority cases, and therefore you don't need to do liban hagolas enough. There's Mar Yehuda, and Bati Batu was a slave, and the Shani Rabbi Nachman from Gemara that he never accepted the get shikra. He wanted to remain a slave, so therefore he had the laws of a slave, but also he keeps all the mitzvahs except like a woman. Shabbat Malka wasn't Jewish. Isaac Kamaya Srega, he brought for them a fruit. Pasak, he used a knife and he cut it. Achal, he ate Pasak, then he cut it again. Bati Batu. Then he took the knife. This guy took the knife, stuck it in the ground 10 times, and then pasak, and he cut another fruit. Havle Mar Yehuda gave it to Mar Yehuda. I'm not a yid. Why for me you didn't bother kashering the knife, and for him you did? Amalei said, Mar Kimle Begave. He, I know he's from. I don't know who you're from or not, and therefore I didn't think, and I would have thought that you would have said something. Or remember my Avodah? Remember what I did last night? I sent women over last night, harlots, and he sent her away, and you took her in, and they weren't Jewish, so therefore I knew that you're not from. However, the truth of the matter is, Bati, because he was still a slave, he's allowed to live with a non-Jewish woman. So he didn't do any avera, but Shabbat Malka wasn't aware of that, so therefore he thought that he did. Hadna loch hasech as a pile the sliklo Masechta Avodah Zarah. We just completed the Masechta Avodah Zarah, and Chazak Baruch and Mitchem. We will continue tomorrow, Masechta Haidius. Okay, have a good day.